the New Madrid Earthquake, the Steamboat, and the Comet. In 1810, Fulton commissioned the first steamboat to be built at Pittsburgh for sailing the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. The steamboat, the New Orleans, was nearing completion on October 6 when a bright comet appeared in the early morning sky in the fall of 1811. The steamboat had on board a 12-person crew and servants. My name is Lidia Roosevelt. The builder and captain is my husband, Nicholas. We have a daughter, and I was pregnant by then, 8 months. On October 20th, the New Orleans began its maiden voyage. Our dog, Tiger, came along too. We passed by many forests. The keelboats and flatboats were carried downstream by the currents. The next day we stopped at Wheeling, West Virginia. The captain charged the townsfolk 25 cents to come aboard the steamboat for a tour. About October 27th, we arrived near Cincinnati, Ohio. People were curious, but when we departed, they thought the river current would prevent the steamboat from ever returning. Soon the steamboat arrived at Louisville, Kentucky for provisions and coal. Low river levels make the falls very dangerous. There on October 30th I gave birth to a boy. Because the water level was too low to pass over the rapids of the Ohio River Falls, the captain took the New Orleans back upstream to surprise the people of Cincinnati. For the next month, people were charged $1 for rides up and down the river. In early December 1811, after the Ohio River level rose, we chanced transversing the falls, new baby and all, and continued on toward the Mississippi River. On December 15th, the New Orleans stopped at a coal outcropping near Owensboro, Kentucky. Very early the next morning, we heard terrible sounds and a felt shaking aboard the steamboat. It was the first great earthquake of the New Madrid Fault. That morning we continued on to Henderson, Kentucky, where no chimneys were left standing. We visited our friends, the painter John James Audubon and his wife Lucy. At times the river would actually flow backwards. Our river journey resumed, but during multiple tremors shaking the land, the hazards of falling trees, and collapsing river banks. Sometimes the ship pilot was confused because the river landscape had been changed. The sky was filled with a haze, and the land moved like ocean waves. We reached the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers called the Point. The few buildings there were in ruins. At various times we would see Indians along the riverbanks and in canoes. The Indians thought this fire canoe with the churning paddle caused the earthquakes, and the belching smoke put debris into the water and sky. Sometimes, Indian canoes raced the steamboat, but our power prevailed. The Indians were influenced also by the sign of Tecumseh's comet, but now fading. His name, Tecumseh, means shooting star. On December 19th, we approached New Madrid, Missouri on the Mississippi River. The town was destroyed, but we didn't stop because we feared the steamboat would be overwhelmed by the fleeing people. We saw many wrecked and abandoned boats and realized it was an undoubted miracle of God that the steamboat had survived and kept going. Once we tied up at an island for the night only to find that most of the island had disappeared into the river the next morning. On December 22nd, at the mouth of the St. Francis River, the British naturalist John Bradbury told us it was utter destruction inland. Our harrowing journey was nearing its end when we arrived at Natchez, Mississippi on December 30th, and learned that they had only been shaken with tremors there. And on December 31st, the steamboat's engineer was married to my maid. On January 10, 1812, we finally arrived safely in the steamboat's namesake, New Orleans, after a 1,900 miles journey. But that was not the end of the destruction, for there was another large earthquake on January 23, 1812, and the largest still on February 7, was felt as far away as Maine, and with hundreds of tremors in between.
On October 31, 1895, there was another large earthquake centered in Charleston, Missouri, which caused widespread destruction throughout the Mississippi Valley. In recent days, many small tremors are shaking the area around the New Madrid Fault. This begs the question, what does the future hold for this region? In 1973, David Wilkerson had a vision of a tremendous earthquake striking the United States. These are quotes from his books, The Vision and Racing Toward Judgment. The United States in the not-too-distant future will witness the most tragic earthquake in its history. Another earthquake, possibly in Japan, may precede the one I see coming here. This terrible earthquake may happen in an area not known as an earthquake belt. It will be so high on the Richter scale that it will trigger 2 other major earthquakes. All this destruction, death, and terror will happen in less than 2 minutes of divine judgment. A series of minor earthquakes will precede the major killer quakes. One of moderate magnitude will strike, with moderate damage, and many will be relieved that a massive quake did not happen, but it will follow, most assuredly. And our nation will weep. Thousands will lie buried in heaps of rubble. Those who remain will be terrorized by great aftershocks and hundreds of tremors. Those evacuated and those who eventually escape the epicenter will be fearful of ever returning. Why will a loving God allow this to happen? Judgment has always been stalking this nation, but the hand of God has protected us. However, the last 40 years have brought increasing materialism, extremes in immorality, and rejection of biblical principles, which has pushed him away. It is not an act of God, but our own thoughts, words, and actions that are to blame. Take the Lord's promise, and with a warning, to heart. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land.